Bravehearts, Urbanites, Coach Mad Hatters, Urban Creatrix, Crimson Velvet VIPs. Welcome to my Sunday morning. It is, let's see if we can get it completely situated. It is Sunday, March 13th, 2022 at 10:39 a.m. DMV Standard Time. We have been getting more and more familiar with the expansion of energy and how nothing is going to be as it used to be. Even with all of the frequency mixing and mingling, I'm noticing that we are still slow to loosen the reins on how we figure we're going to check people or how we figure we know better about somebody else's life and what their timeline is about, what it is they signed up to come here and experience. Why? Because we continue to fight these colonial conditions that says somebody ought to be this way or that way or another way. And usually the person who's speaking this figures that the way they're doing life is the better way. Everything else is weird. I say embrace your weirdness. I say that it's now all an energetic toss-up, and that those that speak in terms of energetic frequency knows that it could be so-called positive and negative vibes intermingled, and that there's going to become a time in one's life where you will not be able to decipher the salt from the sugar just by looking at it. You're actually going to have to engage it. And usually both will be required. And you have to remain inside of the meridian. Can't use too much salt, can't use too much sugar, which means bittersweet. Inside the bosom of bittersweet, there is balance. So yeah, right out the gate, we are getting into it right out of the fucking gate. So, of course, I am here because I want to share something with you, mainly about my last 3 days. Now, as I speak often, sevens and threes and zeros, actually, we're gonna slowly but surely be introducing our awareness to sweet zero, like sweet 202 or sweet 808, sweet 707, sweet 333. We are doing a sweet zero. That is what I'm starting to like to call home base, homeroom, the fourth chamber. And as we often have heard, home is where the heart is. So we are still dealing with fourth chamber stationed stuff. Fourth chamber is the fourth chakra, which is green and is identified as the heart chakra. I came across the storyline of Eartha Kitt's life. And I'm beginning to be amazed at how story after story after story, especially those that they prop up inside of the public stratosphere to sway opinion, those that they will handpick and select as celebrity and then put their entire lives on display. And how the society that I grew up in has been set up to seek the example of celebrityism from the onset of its colonial inception, and how make-believe is truly a vibrant industry. And if we really want to be honest, everything that we swear we know has come from somebody else. Even the things that we would say have high intuitive value has been infused and influenced some kind of way. And yet we still walk this earth without any flexibility to the understanding that we all have gathered faulty information that is most often ingrained in the way we perceive the world and ourselves. And as I often say, I am speaking, anytime I get up here and speak, I am talking about the relationship with self. There's no way in the world I could ever tell you about relationships with others, because that all shows up differently. We don't even love to the same degree. And when I say we, I'm talking about each individual in its individual course of earthling experience do not love the same two things equally. Folks would love to swear that they do, but there's this thing, this little unknown or increasingly known thing called chemistry. It's called energetic chemistry, synergy, if you will. And it really is a thing. Being the observer of the storylines that are now being highlighted around Eartha Kitt just makes me wonder about stuff and how it is that we still are slow to understand that there are people that are purposely unidentified to secretly add components to sway the public opinion around certain folks, around certain places, around certain things. Because public opinion is a powerful thing if you are one that understands how to yield it. So I wrote a real quick memo, what I like to call magic memos to the spirit of my Nana. Now, all of my biological Nanas are out of body now. They are no longer in this realm inside of flesh. And many, I'll say, I was about to go many. Many folks would think that when I say Nana, that I'm always talking about my biological Nana. But being a stylist of 20 years, I have many Nanas. And I am grateful for the adoption of the love that I have gained from being around so many different kind of women. And honey, you do their hair right, they will adopt you. They will adopt you. Not full-fledged, but you will have a special heart, a special place in their heart. And so I have many Nanas, and I have been part of conversations with elder feminine frequency from all walks of life that allows me a common thread. And one of the reasons why I say I don't move to common sense. All of my sensibilities are uncommon, unconventional, and I like it that way. I'll perk up when I'll hear somebody try to criticize another for not having common sense. And I'll just giggle to myself and I'll keep it moving. Because uncommon sense does not mean you're whack in your sensibilities at all. And those with the courage to stand alone in its convictions, knowing that it does put in its time to study. It does put in its time to become one inside of its conversations from the inside out. A lot of people would like to call it meditation. I just simply say the conversations with self, whether they are silently or out loud. And to be able to stand firm and not buckle under someone else's opinion of you. And I think we are in this peculiar energy because so many people have to get from under the grip of someone else's judgment. We do have a life with two sides, a light side, which is the outer side, which is the inter, where you deal with everyone else. And then the inner side, which is intra, which means you deal with the multiplicity of yourself. You're actually a channel to a pantheon of energies that have been archetypally characterized, and they have been preserved in print. And so you can go find this information. You don't have to take my word for it. One of the things that continue to ring loud inside of this highlight of Eartha Kitt's life is how while she was living, there were true influences behind the scenes that were giving her timelines a run for its money. They would quietly say things that they knew were not true. She went through all sorts of things trying to retrieve her birth certificate, only to find out that all of her troubles stemmed from not wanting her white daddy to be identified. Amazing. Even when you Google her right now, the name of her dad, which was disclosed in this mini documentary, if that's what they want to call it, they identify who her dad is. They had blacked out the name on her birth certificate because her mama was so-called black, while her dad was so-called white, prominent physician. Go figure. But even with all of that hoopla, Eartha Kitt still found a way to retrieve her birth certificate, and even make her way through the realms of celebrityism, all the way up to being in audience with President Lyndon and First Lady. So she gets blacklisted because while at this luncheon with the First Lady, she made, she meaning Eartha Kitt, made a question that was much longer than a question, but it required First Lady to address three major things around the Vietnam War and the drafting of such war, as well as poverty, crime, and the war that's going on homeland, and how it is that the resources were being allocated the way that they were, and those that were being required through draft, and those that were being what's the word I'm looking for? Disparaged for the same reasons. So I'm going to share real quick. I'm going to share my screen with a little piece that it just popped out of me earlier today. And my inner dialogue invited me to share, so why not? Dear Nana, once again, I sit before you perplexed and utterly dumbfounded about the momentous efforts that continue to uphold the cloak and dagger plots injected into the true livelihoods of those picked to be before the mainstream lens. And all for the sake of swaying public opinion. How soon we all seem to be forgetting the historical habits of blacklisting, employment blocking, and character assassinations. Yes, even in our regular old lives, these shenanigans are still being quietly exercised and kept. It amazes me how it is that we don't figure the shenanigans that can go on in regular old life. Because remember, those that cloaked and daggered the injections involving Eartha Kitt's life, she's just one. And I'm pretty sure if you put your mind to this context, you will soon attract the content of what I'm speaking about. So I'm not going to send you here or send you there or send you anywhere. What I'm going to do is simply invite you to explore. And we will use Eartha Kitt, born January 17, 1927. So back in her days, it really was uncool to be born a so-called Black mom to a so-called white dad. And because of all the things that we value or have been conditioned to devalue, when I immediately found out about the controversy around her birth certificate because of who the dad was being identified, I immediately acknowledged her being a female Capricorn. I do that often just because of my own journeys. But then I immediately went into all of the teachings around Sister Myra Moss and what she talks about with the daughter of this cosmic royalty and all that she has had to contend with over this course of timelines with regards to character and how her character will be assassinated, mingled, mangled, misdirected, and that folks will know the truth of these scenarios, whether they are from her inner circle or the outer limits. And no one will say anything until after she's dead or after she's transitioned from this realm. That's when the whole timeline clears her. But while she's living, she's in pure agony, knowing that there are those behind the scenes that are weaving a greater narrative that doesn't even come close to touching the true details of her existence. And it even said in the mini documentary how her story was always being injected. Because as long as that's happening, somewhere, somehow, some way, it could be managed with who called her, who didn't call her, who had the audacity to think they knew better what was going on with her life because it was going and coming from outside sources. This isn't information that they heard from Eartha Kitt herself. These were things being weaved and patched together that by the time it came across their eyes, by the time it came across their desk, with them not having the means to know better. And see, remember, these are the conversations that are quietly kept, but they are the weighty determining factors of how she got gigs, when she was paid properly, how she was able to maneuver and uphold her livelihoods. And from the outpouring of opinion, Eartha Kitt was the villain all the time. Not until after she was dead and everybody decided that they wanted to come forward with their truths, began to clear her name and try their best to reconcile all of these inaccurate assassinations upon her character. And I'm only using a celebrity at the moment because, as I said, I was so taken aback with the way that this mini documentary was being delivered and all of the things that were said about her in the media, which was readily embraced as truth, and it wasn't. And one of the reasons why she started to go hard and became this rambunctious persona, these intricate details we never know about another person. Even if the other person, the B person, knows about it, to speak freely about it is almost as if to be attracting more of that which you say is not right. Folks not gonna believe you, no way. That's the incredible part. The incredible part is those sweet and tender, bitter parts, those spaces where you wonder, what is it that folks actually believe about you? And do they have the proper aspects by which they are trying? They're trying. They are trying. And one man's treasure is not everyone's treasure. Everybody did not sign up to experience the third dimension on a hustle or hustle hard or go home frequency. They just didn't. Even that which we are contemplating as solo independence, or even the uh, bamboozling of matrimony. I always think it's a hoot when it's time to dig down into that and try to pick apart the colonial mindset of matrimony versus the true value of sacred matrimony. Two totally different things. And how we easily overlook the colonial intertwinings of even how we even value marriage, as if marriage did not start out as a monarch tool to blend regions, divide and conquer lands, to accumulate municipal and societal powers. Tribe folk was not lining up to get a legal marriage license. They didn't need legal permission to marry. And they did not let anybody fool them into believing it had anything to do with their salvation. But I'm going to end it here. There really is a war between broken hearts. And it's not a physical war. Anytime that I speak war, I'm never talking about flesh and blood. I think many will continue to be in awe as they go deeper into their non-physical frequencies. And what is going to begin to come into their awareness around their individualized experience here inside of the third dimension. I was about to say the third degree. I might need to explore that and figure out what that was about. But yeah, your individualized frequency of your individualized experience inside the third dimension. And how life is not as cookie cutter as they were leading us to believe. And I say they, meaning the powers that be, the ones that write policy, the ones that understand the nooks and crannies of the legislative system, those that can build and build and build and build, those that when they show up inside of any type of court proceedings, they are noticed and they are considered. Them. Everybody want to be sassy. Who's they? I just identified them for you. Those that actually have bloodlines that are responsible for chopping and screwing the American lands and making maps out of them. Those that are responsible inside of longevity, just responsible through longevity of the bloodlines who took account to say that they were the line drawers, they were the land custodians. Just because they had the nerve to name themselves that. And next thing you know, you're pumping out all kinds of maps that everyone agrees to. And yes, this is now Louisiana. Yes, this is now New Carrollton. Yes, this is now North Carolina. Yes, this is now Georgia. That's Florida. That way over there is New Mexico and Texas and California. Yeah, these were agreed upon. All lines of demarcation were all agreed upon. And we are seriously inside of an energetic influx. And many people's awareness and conventionalities and sensibilities and emotionalities and mentalities are no longer going to be bamboozled by the colonial set. And they are now differentiating between that which has been conditioning them and paying real close and quiet attention to how they are slowly but surely releasing themselves from the hoopla. Not charging mama, daddy, nana, and them with anything that they were raised to consume or embrace because everybody was getting by. But the more and more folks are doing their intimate investigations, they are understanding that the majority of it were all lies in order to sway public frequency, because that is a powerful tool. Public opinion is a powerful tool. That's why folks go crazy about this thing called reputation, not even realizing they do this for a living. They have an entire agency that will start these little manila folders and they will populate it with a whole bunch of pompous and we've seen it, heard about it time after time after time after time. And yet we still sit and just consume all of the shenanigans. I wonder, and I'm still going to continue to wonder, how many folks know that it just doesn't happen in the celebrity culture? That the workers of these agencies are the same ones that turn the keys and sit at the dining room table at Big Mama's. You got to understand that. And then everyone wanted to look at me like I'm crazy because now all of a sudden my interior dialogue says, speak about this. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I do wish you well.